total for this particular proposal is, it's time and materials, but it's $45,445. And again, on page 296 is a breakdown of the hours proposed for that. Again, they're not marking up these costs, it's just a direct cost. So again, the proposal is, or the request rather is for the board to approve both amendment number 6 and amendment number 9.
Where's the funding coming for this?
So additional costs are coming from, at this point, they would be coming from the construction grant. We're at nearly at the amount of our planning grant. However, we're in working with our project manager for the planning grant, which will also be our project manager for the construction. All these costs can be rolled into the construction construction grant, which should be coming to the board probably in May or June for approval. At that point, we can invoice the state for reimbursement for any costs incurred above and beyond the planning grant.
Okay, so coming from?
So it'd be coming from the overall grant for the wastewater treatment plant would be paying for it. So the total that's coming for construction is 44 million and some change. I don't have the exact number, but this overage would come from that.
Okay, but up front we're paying it.
Up front, it'd be similar to what we're paying, what we're doing now. You have to pay for it and then they pay us back for it. So we would pay for this now. Once we have that grant agreement approved, then we would be reimbursed that money through invoicing the state, which is just what we've been doing.
Okay.
So
it's capital reserve for wastewater now, or what?
So it would be coming out of operational cash now. And then when it's reimbursed, it would go back to that.
So the largest portion of it, 122,000, is literally due to the change type of MBR that we're buying?
So due to that change, yeah, that's most of it. In working through these changes and working through the overall cost of the MBR and the operational costs, we're still well below what it's going to cost long term to purchase, install, and own that. So it's still a good investment as far as the change. It'll be operationally, it'd be much simpler. Long term, it's going to cost a lot less. It's just a little bit more upfront. If that unit had, well, in reality, if the Cal Poly project had been a little farther along, we probably wouldn't have experienced this. But unfortunately, because the M9 was so new, the actual conversion on our end was not really fully known.
Seems like I bought that M9 4-ish years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year it was, but anyway. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I've got. Director, any questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Do we have public comment on this item? Okay.
I move that we adopt.
We have a motion by Director Smiley to approve 2 contract amendments, number 6 and number 9 with Wallace Group. We have a second? Hopefully.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Director Beatty.
Okay. Director Smiley?
Yes.
Director Beatty?
Yes.
Director Davis?
No.
Director Sangster?
Yes.
Passes 3, 1 vacant.
Roughly, Kelly, what do we have, what's left over on our grant so far? like what would you say, do you put, a number, are we 85% about used up as far as grant or what grant money we'd be getting?
So if you're referring to our planning grant for the treatment plant,
Yes.
so after this, so at the end of 2025, we were about 98% spent. This would be above that.
Yeah.
We have additional billing to recoup basically the last 2 quarters because of delay in providing the deliverables to the state, they were not due until the end of December. They've been provided so we can back bill those. But this would be above that. And again, this would be provided or paid through the construction grant and is eligible to be through the construction grant. Once that's awarded, or not awarded, but once that agreement is approved between the district and the state.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, continuing from November 20th and 15th, 2025 board meetings, discussion on district administrative office space and potential alternatives to relocate offices away from the Machado wastewater treatment facility for administrative staff.
So based on previous discussion, we've narrowed the discussion down to 2 real options. One, move the administrative staff to 1271 Mission Street, or to maintain district staff at the wastewater treatment plant. Moving to 1271 Mission Street at this point is that if we were to relocate from the treatment plant is really the only place to go at this point. There is another property that it may be available within the next year, but I don't have a time frame for that, and she's working through some other issues. So it is possible to go to the Mission Street. We have pretty heavy opposition from staff and the SEIU, the district's staff or employee union, against going there, primarily because of the location. It does have its own issues. Other than location, we would have to provide some additional security measures, which we could work through with the owner. Despite some opinions, it will take a little bit more than nothing to move there. We will have some cost in staff time. We'll have some cost in some additional furniture, not a lot. We have a lot of furniture ourselves. We would need to make some sort of front desk area, reception area. We would need to divide the space up into semi-private or private office spaces to allow confidential employees to conduct business without everybody overhearing everything. So there is cost to doing that. The owner is amenable for us to do that, depending on how long-term lease we were looking at doing. The first year costs overall, in one-time costs, I'm projecting $19,600, which is most likely on the low end of the minimum costs. The ongoing costs are roughly $3,193 per month based on a $2,500 a month rental. I did get something from the owner yesterday, Wednesday. He is willing to negotiate a lower rate, considerably lower rate, for 2 years and then slowly bring it back up. But that would depend on how much upfront cost there is to him. But he is open to that, so that could reduce the overall cost. However, for the purposes of this report, they're based on a $2,500 a month rent, which is what he initially had told me. So the first year could be approximately $19,600 in moving and setup costs. The first year could be $38,313. in operating and rent costs, which those costs, depending on what the actual lease rent was, would be less in the initial years and could go back up to $2,500 at some point, depending on what the negotiated lease would be. So what we'd be recommending, or what I would be recommending to the board at this point, is whether or not the board wants to move to that location and provide authorization to negotiate a lease to lease the property or to purchase the property from the registered owner, and bring that back to a future board meeting for the board to approve the lease and the costs associated with moving there. The other portion of this is whether or not the district is going to continue to rent or is going to purchase the modular that is currently at the wastewater treatment plant. My recommendation rather is to purchase the unit at the treatment plant, continue using it as necessary through construction, and then make a determination after the plant is through construction on what if any modifications need to be made, or if that unit is even necessary. My position is that unit or a similar unit will be necessary at the treatment plant, especially after the new plant is built. We need additional space or maybe not additional space, but office space for operators. We'll need space for some sort of a lab to be set up in a clean environment. The operators at that site would still need to have some sort of a break room, restrooms, things of that nature. Initially, it wouldn't need to be anything more than we have if we move the administrative staff out of that office. If we retain the office staff at that office, then the district will have to look at some sort of other alternative means to provide lab space and provide a meeting location for contractors during construction, which may be a cheaper option than moving administrative staff in the first place. Again, my recommendation is to buy the office trailer. We were able to negotiate with API for a slightly reduced rate, essentially a $6,000 reduction in the original cost. However, they're also including replacing the windows on the west side, which are single pane windows, with double pane windows to match the east side, which would be probably being that it's a modular and have to go through HUD and all that, it'd probably be a $4,000 or $5,000 at least cost to the district, probably more actually, but on the low end maybe, if we were to do that on our own. So again, my recommendation is that, well, in general, that we stay at the wastewater treatment plant, but if in either aspect would be that the district purchase the office trailer at the treatment plant for use as we see fit until such time as we can determine that we either don't need it or need something different. And as far as moving from the treatment plant, my recommendation is to wait until the other property becomes available and see what the costs are of that other property and determine what if anything the board wants to do at that time. Unfortunately, I don't have a time frame for the board on the other property, so I understand if you don't want to wait indefinitely for something.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
What would be the bottom price on buying that trailer? You come up with,
Well, the price that we have agreed or have negotiated to this point is $166,069.27 to leave it there as is, or to leave it there and replace the 4 windows on the west side.
okay, well, and that includes all the AOC that's on it?
The ADA?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
As
if you
is,
change the windows and then leave the rest there, that's what it would be.
$166,000?
$166,069.27.
All right.
And I would imagine based on other pricing that we had gotten, or that I had gotten previously for similar things, that we would be able to recoup most, if not all of that, if we sell that probably in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's a little over 75 months worth of rent.
Yeah.
And we would be projecting that we start construction at the treatment plant later this year. That's going to be 3 years of that, at least, if there's not significant delays.
Okay. Comments, questions?
What year is that, office trailer?
So the office trailer is 1985. However,
85?
1985. However, API, the company that owns that trailer, when they bring them back in, they go through and refurbish whatever needs to be fixed. And then when they rent it back out, they set it back up, and then whatever's bad at that point, they replace at that point. When that trailer was brought in, it had some issues with the drywall, which is not real common with modular trailers because of the cracking and damage. But they fixed all that as part of the setup. So, you know, as far as the overall structural stability of that trailer, I'm not overly concerned with that. Everything that has been a problem since we've had it has been fixed professionally. So.
And the HVAC systems are newer than 1985?
I don't know the exact year, but they do appear to be considerably newer than that.
Okay. Director?
Yeah, well, I think in the event that you do leave the staff down there, they need to sign
Release of liability?
release of liability for anything that happens there, whether they get sick or anything else pertaining to that treatment.
I don't know that we could do that.
You cannot do
And
that.
even if we had them do that, I don't know that would mean anything.
You can't do that with employees. That's not how that works, especially current employees that already work here. So that is a different discussion though, relating to personnel policies that we can have, but that's the general idea of that is in opposite to the law.
Well,
So just as a reminder, when our administrative staff moved there, they were made aware of what is there and what potentially could happen there. It is in everybody's job description that that's where they work, or that's what they could be exposed to. That went through negotiations. Everybody is well aware of the issues that may arise. I understand the board's concern, and we're not, I'm personally, and I'm not trying to get the district into any trouble with anybody making a claim against the district because of where they work. However, at this point, given the opposition of our administrative staff, I think that we would have a bigger problem moving right now, at least, to next to the bar. But
I think the gist of what is the point of this agenda item, not speaking, Director Green. However, my read on what the objective here was that it was based on concern for employee safety. So as you pointed out, there's vehement opposition, both from the staff and from the union, as expressed in the letter last time. So if there's a desire for them to be there, I don't want the district to shoulder the burden of liability should something happen or they get sick or whatever, when it's really ultimately their choice. Because again, it's been proposed that there's potential options for other alternative spaces to be working. However, the choices that were given to us through the union and the letters that were written were that they want to be there. So my concern is that, okay, if they're there, that's fine. But I don't want additional liability for the district.
I think we can ask for an additional acknowledgement that they understand the consequence of working there, but asking for a waiver of any sort of liability on the district's part seems like that's outside of our ability.
We'd have to do legal analysis on these specific circumstances because this is unique. So it's not an easy, quick answer. I can easily tell you you cannot have them waive all liability associated to anything that happens there. Under any circumstances. But as far as health and safety concerns, and if there's specific ones, that's something that we would need to look at against what the district is attempting to mitigate.
I think it's specific to working in an environment with, waste being treated and equipment being operated to treat that waste. It's not a normal office environment or location that people that were doing administrative work would normally go to in the common sense. So I'm saying if we're mitigating, if they want to stay, I'm okay with that, but I want to mitigate the risk based on the operational nature of the facility. That's all, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm just one voice, man.
Any other board comment?
We have, like you mentioned, the staffing down there, administrative staff. They're not jumping in the ponds. They're not using any equipment out there in the office. If they sign something that says we acknowledge where we work, I mean, not giving up liability or anything, but I mean, they know they work there. If somebody has a complaint, I think it would have been made a long time ago. I mean, prior.
I would think so, but you'd never really know.
And I know there's been, I think Kinsey's the only one that wasn't there prior. I think Michelle and Cam were the only two that came from the previous building over there. Is that correct?
No, Kinsey came over when we moved there.
Oh, she did. Oh, yeah, you're right. All right, yeah. So everybody was somewhere else and then they moved there. So, I mean.
So the only people that have come to work for the district since the office or the administrative staff has been there have been operators.
And operators, that's
That are outside
what
of
they
the
do. That's what they do.
I guess the theme that I'm talking about is like, for example, if you had a sign posted on the gate, hazardous environment, enter at your own risk. If somebody enters and has an issue, it's already posted. So I'm saying it would give you one legal tool to defend the district in the event that something should happen. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, 'cause people go there to pay their bills too.
Yeah.
Yes, that is appropriate for the public. There's a different standard applied when someone is required to show up somewhere for their employment.
Sure.
In that respect, I can work with Christina to come up with something for the employees and as well as the public.
Okay.
And then as far as actually, now that you're on that, the public, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the public, when they go in there to pay their bill, they can't turn right and walk into the plant, right?
So there is a gate, or not a gate, but a chained off area. So if they want to go and run around the plant, then
They can't.
they could if they wanted to. I mean, anybody can run in there and jump over the fence.
Yeah.
But for somebody to walk straight out the door and then turn right, they're going to be right in front of Kinsey looking out the window.
Yeah.
So she's going to see them. We also have cameras everywhere outside, so it's not like we wouldn't see that person roaming around. To my knowledge, we haven't had any instance of that since we erected all the fencing. It doesn't mean that it can't happen, but again, I mean, somebody could run in and jump over the fence. I think overall, we've had more people break in the middle of the night than we've had instances of somebody wanting to go the wrong way.
That is true.
Okay. Just the only points I have, anything else, Jim? Madam Director?
No, this is just public comment now.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you hit the tip of the iceberg on one issue, and that's what does the public think? They've got to go down there and deal with the sewer plant when they go pay their bills, when they have any business with the district, when they want to go talk to anybody. Has anybody consulted anybody in that neighborhood at a minimum, but maybe the rest of the community? A comment card mailed out to the community with a couple of questions. Where would you like to see your community services district office? That would be pretty informative, pretty inexpensive, and it would give you a real good indication of what they want, because it's their building. Well, I don't really care what the employees want. They're paid to work here. If they want to take that risk, that's fine, but the public doesn't pay to take that risk. So why don't we ask them? Second, to clarify, what's the security issue with the 1271 Mission Street building?
It'll be addressed in the next public comment.
Oh, you're going to talk about it further?
Well,
There's a
we have
public
a
comment
written
directly
public
addressing it.
I'm sorry, say again.
We have a written public comment that brings up the same thing.
Okay, can I ask? Okay, you can talk
I
about
mean,
it.
I can answer the question if that's desire of the board, but if you go through your whole comment, then you
Oh,
can probably
okay. So I want to know what the security issue is over there on Mission Street. And also, you mentioned that there was a proposal put in yesterday? A lease proposal by the owner of the building?
I received one, yes.
Okay, was that provided to the board?
I only received it yesterday, so no.
Okay, so the board hasn't seen what was in that proposal. Since we're talking about numbers and you brought up a rent figure, I don't think that's proprietary. What was the rent figure quoted in the proposal?
Can you finish your comment so I can answer all the questions at once?
I might have a follow-on question. Okay, so I want to know about what the rent proposal is and the entirety of the proposal so that you can have all the facts and figures. That would be interesting to hear. What's the security issue over at Mission Street? What is currently there's a bathroom and a building over at the sewer plant. Bathrooms being used is the bathrooms possibly available, but the office portion of it's being used as a storage room, I understand. Can you address that issue? How many square feet is that? Why can't that be cleaned out and used as an office for the remaining employees that would be over at the plant? I'm sure they're gonna have desks over at the new office too, where they're gonna go back and forth, because employees travel around a lot, and you're gonna need a place, so there's a little office over there for you. So if you could expand upon that, and why do we have to buy that trailer? Why is that essential if they're gonna be in a new office? And also, you brought up another building that might be available in San Miguel. What building is that? And since you have no idea what the date's gonna be, there's gonna be 15 more buildings when they finish the other side of the street, but that might be 15 years, so we can wait for that too?
There's a lot of harassment going on here.
Asking questions.
I don't know. This is harassment.
No, I think those are just aggressively asked questions.
Aggressively.
Okay. Time's up. We'll
There you go.
have either your comment or
So I'd like to make a comment. First of all, it's always cheaper when you're on property that you already own. And it's kind of a no-brainer. It's really, I think it was already said that if the staff isn't seeking a place to go away from the plant, then obviously they are working well within that. It's only in the first, few feet that they're even in. What about all the houses around that area too? They're essentially in the same region. So what happens is when staffing is working like we have very limited staffing, they're wearing multiple hats and they have to speak with one another and correspond and get together and everything. And for us to be going and renting another slot, when we already have one? Why are we creating a problem that didn't exist? I didn't hear employees complaining. That's when you would need to bring it up. That's when you need to address that. No employees were complaining about this. So this is something that is kind of a moot point. The other thing is that the cost over there on that building is, the previous speaker mentioned about, let the citizens decide. Well, be sure that they also are aware that it's going to cost money, more money than what they already have, which costs zero. So it's not even equal. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Yes.
Again, my name is Robert Johnson, and I reside here in San Miguel. My question to the board is, yes, I understand they're in this building and they've been in this building 3-4 years. But me, having my background, there are soldiers, military personnel who went to combat and actually worked in combat, and actually they actually stirred and took care, the fecal matter. And so it has taken it 10-20 years for all of that, working in that hazardous environment, to actually catch up to them. So my question to you is, okay, we're not complaining in 2026, but let's forge ahead to 2036. And now they're coming down with COPD, all these lung and eye issues. And the doctor's gonna say, well, where did you work and where did all of this come from? So once they do that research, and they say, oh, I worked here, at the San Miguel Water and Treatment Plant for 20 years. Oh, so you sat there and inhaled all of this for 20 years? Of course it's gonna eventually catch up to you. So I wouldn't say that employees should sign away their rights to come back and say, hey, you owe me. But at the same time, I understand we have to do this with balance. But I wouldn't sign away my ability to be able to come back and say, hey, I worked here and now I'm 60 years old and I can't breathe, I'm on oxygen, I can't see, I can't drive. So my thing is, whatever the board decides, please look at the long-term health effects of these people working in this building. It's all fine and dandy now, but 10, 20 years down the line,